Hey everyone, it's Zach reminding you to check out Brian Windhorst in the Hoop Collective twice a week. My friend Wendy and his cohorts bring you insight and analysis on all things NBA. You can find the Hoop Collective wherever you get your podcasts.
And now, the Lowe Post.
Welcome to the Lowe Post podcast where the NBA is back. It's August. Things are just weird. But for the first time in a long time, I am thrilled to welcome in, like a warm blanket, my first ever guest on this podcast, one of my favorites as always, ESPN's Kevin Arnovitz. How are you?
Wet blanket or warm blanket?
Well, I think I said warm, I hope.
I appreciate it. I'm well. How are you?
I'm hanging in. We got a tropical storm rolling in. It's a good time. I have to say, I feel like, is this what it's like on Pacific time? Just all the time? Like, there are games on in the afternoon. It's insane. I love it. It's incredible.
Zach, like 10:30 a.m. It is This is West Coast living at its best. It's just like, you've got it. Pretty much most of your waking life, you have basketball if you want basketball.
I can get so much more done during the day. Like, it's I can watch more basketball. I assume like you, I've just been binging the NBA. Shockingly surprised by the quality of the play. Even the offenses, which everyone said would start slowly, initially did, largely because of free throws. Like, the offenses are doing fine. Like, some teams look really fun. You got to give the players a ton of credit because clearly they stayed in shape. These teams rediscovered their chemistry really fast, which is an interesting sort of sociological experiment, right? You're apart for 4 months. You can't even really practice together when you start doing workouts again. And like, bam, everything kind of comes back. Some teams have changed lineups. It's just been very interesting. You've enjoyed it, I assume, right? I think the basketball's been great.
Yeah, I was concerned. I thought, okay, if it looks and feels like Summer League, will it, ultimately play like Summer League? And it is intense. I mean, it is, to me, non-distinguishable from really, frankly, I mean, we would be in the March to April dog days at this point, sort of just running out the clock. I actually think the play is better here than it is in your typical March 22nd matchup.
When I'm watching a game, I don't even really notice that the environment is different. Like, it looks the same. It sounds the same. To your point, one of my favorite things about it is you can hear all the "oh hell no" from the bench when somebody shoots a three, or like, and then and I think there have been more aggressive, mean mugging stare downs of opposing benches because the players can hear it too. I even like the virtual fans. The virtual fans are kind of cool. And like, Chris Bosh pops in, Manu Ginobili popped in. It's like, who's gonna pop in tonight?
Yeah, it's also kind of a perfect representation of 2020. Like, we're basically all doing virtual screens all the time. Like, what would a 2020 event be without the virtual renditions of people?
I might pop in. You should pop in. Why not pop in? I want to see what it's like.
Do you have like a link? Can you just pop in?
I don't know. I want to pop in. I want to be a virtual fan. I might have to try and do it.
If you get the link, pass it on. Which game, like which team would you sort of
well, that's a dicey one.
See, that's the thing. And like, I could do my home team, but they're not there.
I feel like the Wizards probably need some virtual fans. Maybe I could just hop on the Wizards bandwagon while they play out the string here, and just get in on the Troy Brown Jr. experience. Okay, so let's talk about basketball. There are four major storylines that we can bounce around. Number one, the race for 8th in the West is just absolute mass chaos now that Memphis has started 0-3 with 2 heartbreakers and then a loss last night to the Pelicans. By the way, we're recording this around noon Eastern time. Games are going to be starting soon. Things are going to change right away, so just keep that in mind. Number two, the 3-6 race in the West just makes my head hurt. But at least with Dallas having blown a couple of games in very Dallas-y fashion, it's just 3-6 and not 3-7. Dallas is going to be 7. They're going to play the Clippers in the first round, or probably play the Clippers in the first round. That's that. And then 4-6 in the East, which started off with a bang. TJ Warren winning what essentially counts as 2 games for the Pacers over the Sixers because the Pacers now have the tiebreaker clinched. 53 points against Philly. And now, like, we could be staring at the Boston-Philly matchup that I don't think either team is super psyched about. And everyone was kind of assuming Indiana was going to fall to 6. No. And then the fourth one, which we can get to, is everyone, I guess, has suddenly realized the Toronto Raptors are really good. They come in, they blitz the Lakers, they win again yesterday. I watched the game, and I'm not even remembering who the hell they played. It was a good game. It was a close game. I watched it, and I don't even the Heat. They played the Heat, and everyone, and now there are all these articles like, "Hey, the Raptors are maybe contenders." Yeah, no, the Raptors have been awesome all year. Welcome to the NBA in 2020. The Raptors are really good. Let's start off with the race for eighth. There are the Kings. Have not acquitted themselves well. I mean, everyone's going to beat up the Kings because it's Kings, and it's always fun to make fun of the Kings. But they had they had some COVID tests. They had Rashawn Holmes with the accidental food delivery quarantine. Like, they were not set up to come out rolling in a small sample size. The Spurs are 2-1. The Blazers are 1-1. The Pelicans are 1-2. It's just Phoenix is 2-0. Is Phoenix 2-0? I don't know. I'm losing track. Phoenix
They've won a couple games, yeah.
Phoenix has come out looking really good. All of a sudden, this is a wide open race to the point, Mr. Arnovitz, that there are realistic scenarios, at least semi-realistic, where Memphis doesn't even get into the play-in tournament, let alone like, do they stay at eighth? If, for instance, Memphis finishes 1-4 in their next 5 games, and here are those 5 games: Utah, OKC, Toronto, Boston, Milwaukee in the finale, we'll see. If they go 1-4 and Portland goes 4-2, now that may be the least realistic of all the things I'm about to say, because Portland's schedule is brutal.
Yeah, their schedule's brutal.
And the Pelicans go 4-1. That's just one scenario, leaving out the Spurs, who also have a brutal schedule. Memphis is then out of the play-in tournament entirely, and the play-in tournament becomes New Orleans and Portland. That's just one scenario. Pick any of those teams. What has struck you watching those games? Obviously, Zion's gotten a lot of attention. The Pelicans have a cake schedule going forward. But what has drawn your attention so far?
I mean, Portland in this sense, and I know they lost a tough one to Boston the other day. But so if you look at their lineup, this is effectively a Western Conference Finals team, at least. When you look at the personnel, I mean, Collins is still kind of rusty, but you got Melo. Obviously, the backcourt, Damian's healthier. So to me, this is a team, and again, the schedule presents the greatest challenge. But this is a team that we would pick as a playoff team. In any other, we did pick, or at least I did pick as a playoff team. So to me, they strike me as the best team. Now, strength of schedule, they're gonna get screwed.
Yeah, can I read their schedule before you go forward?
It's insane. Yeah,
Houston, 2-0 and playing well. Denver, kind of a wild card because 3 of their starters have not played yet. All their perimeter starters. Clippers, that's not a great one. Philly, you don't know what the hell you're going to get out of Philly. I mean, Philly has reached a point, they had to come back to beat the Spurs after blowing a 14-point. Philly has reached a point where they could make the finals, and I wouldn't be surprised, or they could lose in the first round, and like Shake Milton could accidentally discover the cure for the coronavirus in his hotel room, and I wouldn't be surprised. Like, everything is on the table for Philly. And then Dallas and Brooklyn. So Portland's got a brutal schedule.
Yeah, and they're going to have to defend. It's something they haven't really done yet. But again, I like them because this is a Western Conference final team in terms of personnel. Last season. Let me just clarify that. Last season.
Yeah, and one of the big swings for them has been, obviously, Nurkic has looked like his old self. Nurkic has looked fantastic. But getting big minutes out of Gary Trent Jr. on the wing has been huge. He made 7 threes the other night. I agree with you. I think qualitatively they're the best team. Clearly, we all sort of imagined this apex version of the Pelicans, and we're not going to get that version of the Pelicans because Zion just can't stay on the court for more than 15 or 20 minutes a game. He was completely gassed last night before they brought him in, and then, of course, he just basically broke the rim and just willed them to a win. And their schedule is Kings, Wizards, Spurs, Kings, Magic. I mean, 5-0 is on the table for them, you would think. 4-1 is certainly on the table for them. But then you watch them, and it's like, it's just hard to trust that team to take care of business. That's why I'm still kind of optimistic about Memphis. Like, Memphis is going to get one of these games. Like, if they go 1-4, they still have, these other teams need to really take care of business to get Memphis out of the play-in tournament. And you just you can look at the schedule and say, oh, New Orleans could go 5-0. Just like their history and their quality of play is so scattershot, it's just, you could imagine them dropping a game to the Kings and then dropping a game to the Magic, and all of a sudden it's all up in the air.
Yeah, I mean, they've been interesting to watch because they are sort of a classic small sample size. They've been getting good looks and not converting them, particularly in the backcourt. So, and again, strength of schedule. And my understanding is this is not a reward, but to acknowledge that they, I think, had the toughest schedule over the first 60, 65 games. And so you give them a little bit of ease taking that into account. But, Memphis, I don't dislike what they've done. I mean, I know it sounds crazy. They've lost 3 games. It also makes me wonder, I mean, how much is play driven by inertia and muscle memory? And what I mean is a season stops. You take 4 months off. When it revs up again, Damian Lillard doesn't need much to regain his footing because he's been doing this for 8 or 9 years. Morant might need a little more. I mean, he's been 2 for 19 from 3, but I don't dislike what he's getting out of the pick and roll all that much. The floater looks nice. He's getting to the rack at a decent rate. He knows how to hide behind Valanciunas and get himself good looks, which he's not converting. And, I mean, Zach, their defense hasn't been bad. I mean, they have a very switchy defense. It's been fine.
Last night against New Orleans was the most dramatically I could remember any defense this year just treating Ja Morant like Ricky Rubio or Ben Simmons. Just shoot as many threes as you want. We're giving you 10 feet of space. I think he was shooting like 36% coming into the bubble. He's 2 of 19. He's 22 of 61 from the floor. And I like him shooting those shots because to hit his ceiling and for Memphis to eventually hit his ceiling, like he's got to be able to punish teams for going under screen. So I don't mind him going 1 for 10 last night. But it has been interesting to watch because one of the things that has really stood out to me in these 3 games is that, yeah, the threes are one thing, that's fine. When teams switch against him, which, if you go under and then he does the rescreen thing, that often results in a switch. He doesn't look comfortable as you would think attacking slow big guys in switches because they just play 10 feet off of him. He doesn't want to shoot a 3, so he kind of dribbles at them and then, sometimes he just goes right through them and it's a tough shot at the rim. Sometimes he stops and it's a mid-ranger. And I looked at the numbers. Against switches this year on the pick and roll, when he shoots or passes to a teammate who shoots, they're getting like 0.83 points per possession, which is one of the very worst numbers in the league among guards who get switched a lot, among guards who handle the ball a lot. Like that's something I'm going to watch going forward. And Memphis broadly, that the Justice Winslow trade, they're still paying the price for that, not because it was a bad trade, because Justice Winslow hasn't played. And the main guy they traded, who was playing, Jay Crowder, maybe not even a good 3-point shooter, but somebody who will take them and have games where he at least merits respect. And they've replaced him with Kyle Anderson in the starting lineup, and that lineup is a disaster to the point that they're playing Grayson Allen a lot or playing Dylan Brooks at the 3, and they're struggling to find the right balance of defense and shooting. And how Winslow fits next year is really interesting. It's a bummer he's not playing.
Yeah, I mean, one critique of Ja in terms of selectivity, there are too many times he drives when Jackson is on the right block and there is just by design less space. And so, I mean, there's a certain selectivity. I think he's got great instincts. I've talked about how my favorite moment in basketball is when Ja elevates and you don't know what the hell is going to happen. But I do think there are, again, if I have to see, it's like Zach Randolph. It's the old days. And the funny thing is Jackson's a really good guy to provide you range at that position. But there were too many times where he did drive like right into the teeth of the lane and their body's there. And again, that is a moment to be selective. And it generally means there's something else available.
Memphis is also interesting zooming out because you could argue, I don't think you could argue it, 2 of their 3 best players are big men. And you could argue, once you throw Valanciunas in there with Clark and Jackson, 3 of their 4 best players are big men. I mean, you could make an argument for Dylan Brooks and this and that. But when you watch them play teams that are playing smaller, and we're going to talk about the very exciting San Antonio Spurs in a second, it does jump out to you that they are a little anomalous in the fact that, again, like so much their roster is top heavy towards big guys, and that's becoming unusual. Now their big guys are super versatile, and that's great, and they're good players. It's just going to be interesting to see how that evolves.
Right. And meanwhile, the more things change, the more they stay the same. I mean, this is what we were talking about 6 years ago, right? Like
It's
Memphis
true.
was this ecological irregularity, right? Like everybody else was going small. And hey, look, it's by look. You're thrilled that Brandon Clark becomes one of your three best players. I mean, you're thrilled that Jackson is working out. I mean, that's been a
They're
good
so
pick.
good, those guys.
Right? It's tough to look a gift horse in the mouth. It'll be interesting. I mean, Valanciunas has remind me his contract again.
I think he has 1 year left, but I'm going to look it up now.
Yeah, and he's useful. I mean, I don't. I mean, he does.
He's had a very nice season for them. Quietly,
Yeah.
like he does what you. He does. He has 1 year, and then no, he has 2 years left. He does what you ask him to do. Like you know what you're going to get, and he does it.
Yeah, and listen, if you have a developing pick and roll point guard, that's not a bad guy to be a traffic cone and tour guide the first couple of years.
I just that game against New Orleans last night was massive. New Orleans had to win it. They did, and Memphis's life gets very difficult going forward. Can we talk about the Spurs? Have you been able to watch much Spurs?
I've watched a little Spurs. One of the things that sort of occurred to me is I really like DeRozan's evolution. When nobody's been looking, this guy has actually modified his game, and he's become a really good drive and kick player. He doesn't shoot from outside, but you can put the ball in his hands. There are others who do, and he's gotten. I mean, I think he's like third in assists, Zach, since the restart. I really, it's a different DeRozan than we saw in Toronto. Look, I don't know that it makes a damn bit of difference. They're going to be a middling team for the foreseeable future, so long as he's there. But I've enjoyed watching this chapter of DeRozan's career, even if, unfortunately for him, it's not probably going to manifest itself into much in terms of title contention, obviously.
I feel bad because I don't not enjoy watching LaMarcus Aldridge play basketball. Like he's crafty. I like his old school post game. He shot threes this year. They are so much more fun right now than they ever were. I mean, they're starting DeRozan at the 4. They're starting White, Murray, and Lonnie Walker. And Lonnie Walker is just all that dude wants to do is fly around the court. They're playing super fast. I think they're third in pace, and the pace they're playing at would lead the league for the season. Keldon Johnson is involved heavily, so that's all four of their young perimeter players. Derek White has taken, I think, 3 of his 4 highest volume 3-point attempt games have already come in the bubble for the whole season. DeJounte Murray's highest pick and roll game in terms of number of ball screens used, 2 of his 3 have come in the bubble. It's just like they have been absolutely dynamic to watch.
Yeah, I mean, Eubanks is getting time. It's been a really fun amalgamation of sort of summer league and vet savvy, and because Gay's going to give you production, he just is.
Playing a little center,
DeMar is going to give you production. Somehow Pirtle went plus 26 last night in a game what was the final there?
They lost by 1 or 2 something. Shake Milton hit the game-winning 3, and then some other stuff.
Oh, I'm sorry. This was the game against Memphis. I'm looking at my wrong box score, so I apologize.
That was when they won. That was when they won. I mean, when DeMar DeRozan ISO'd against Dylan Brooks, I literally said to myself, he's going to fall for the pump fake because all Dylan Brooks does is foul people. I mean, Dylan Brooks does a lot of stuff, but he fouls the shit out of everybody all the time. He would be a great Jerry Sloan era Jazz player in terms of like, you can't call every foul, so I'm just going to beat the hell out of everybody. And you know DeMar DeRozan is just licking his chops. Like, I got the best pump fake in the league. Now that Dwayne Wade's out, everybody falls for it all the time. This guy, it's going to hurt. Like, Dylan Brooks crashing into me is going to hurt, but I'm going to get 2 free throws and we're going to win the game. I love the bubble Spurs. They are interesting, though, in terms of, like, you just don't know where they're going with these 4 guys. Like, to your point about long-term, like, if all those guys hit, they still are missing a centerpiece or maybe even a number 2 guy. But I like watching them play, and I'm excited to see. I mean, this has been the most competent franchise maybe in professional sports in the last 25 years. I'm excited to see how they make this pivot because the pivot is happening, and that's been made clear.
Yeah, and when DeRozan and Gay leave, to your point, they're going to need some shot creation. They're just going to. It is one thing to have really nice skill guys who will play far above their draft position. You discover them in the bargain bin at the dollar store, and that's great. And you can admire the organization for just that foresight. But at some point, you need shot creation. And when when Gay is gone, when DeRozan is gone, when this pivot continues to sort of go another 90 degrees, it'll be interesting to see how they find that.
Well, because you know what happens, right? Like all of these guys, if all these guys become solid players, DeJounte Murray's already gotten his 4-year, 60 whatever extension. Like solid guys coming off their rookie scale deals. Now we're projecting way forward. Like Kelton Johnson barely just started playing. You know what I mean? Lonnie Walker, the fourth, really kind of barely started playing, although he's been in the rotation for most of the season. They all get paid based on their future potential. So you all get like if you keep developing, you're going to get paid a lot of money, and then all of a sudden, like, whoa, this is our team. Like we can't do anything else, and so you get trapped into sort of you get trapped into this sort of situation where you've done a good job developing your talent, but now like what do you do? But they've been really fun to watch, and again, they've been the most competent team. DeJounte Murray to me, like Derek White's probably been their best player in the bubble, and that's been great to see because he had that breakout series against Denver last year and kind of didn't build on it this year. It was kind of a weird season for him. But DeJounte Murray is the guy who, if that jump shot comes and he can be a reliable mid-range guy, his athleticism and his defense, like that's a guy who can become. I'm not sure what he can become. I don't think he'll
that's the thing. I was sort of waiting for the declaration there.
Could he be a fringe all-star a few times? Like not making the team, but like one of those guys who's always like, well, he's averaging 16 and 7 and he's the best defensive point guard in the league. I'm projecting forward here. Like, could he be that guy? Maybe.
I think the fulcrum in expectations and projections is Ricky Rubio, right? Who, by the way, very good player for a pretty long time. Again, fringe all-star. Really, no, I'm going to talk about non-all-star. Productive though. And I think to me that is. I think that is the middle. That is the 50th percentile of expectations. Like if you draw a range of the best case scenario, worst case scenario, this is middle case scenario.
See, vision-wise, obviously there's no comparison, right? Rubio's an otherworldly passer. I think in every other part of the game, including the jump shot, which is the make or break, and it's the reason why Ricky Rubio has never really happened here to the point that everyone hoped it would happen. I think DeJounte's got a chance to have a reliable mid-range jump shot and maybe a reliable standstill three-pointer. Yeah. I mean, he was pretty reliable on very low volume this year. That to me, I think there are a lot of scenarios where he's better than prime Ricky Rubio, and I hope that that's the case for the sake of the Spurs. Right. We should talk about Phoenix because, look, you can quibble with the process. And there were a lot of, not great process involved in building this team. You know what I mean? They'd salary dumped Josh Jackson and included DeAnthony Melton for some reason, who's good. We can go on and on, but and like the TJ Warren thing. It's interesting how that works because I bet Suns fans are like, we don't even miss TJ Warren. We don't care if he averages 40 in the bubble. Yes, we attached a second-round pick to get rid of him, which seems dumb because he's good and he's on a good contract. It is dumb. That's objectively like a bad move. But we used his space on guys who are helping our team, and we're happy about that. And we're still set up going forward with DeAndre Ayton and Devin Booker and Mikal Bridges, and Rubio is still here, and we got some cap space. Kelly Oubre probably is going to be a part of our team. Like, we're pretty happy with that process, be damned. And it does show you, like, in the NBA, if you hit on enough stuff, and they hit on Booker, they hit on Bridges, they gave up a future first to get him, but he's good.
And by the way, they hit on Johnson.
They hit on Cam Johnson.
By the way, he made my second team. When I just kind of sorted it out, my second team all rookie.
Love it.
Look, a guy with size who can space. And, who didn't give them that? Josh Jackson. He was supposed to be... And I just think this is a contributing player. I look at, the box score from last night. And I'll be honest, I have only seen a couple glimpses of them when I've been flipping channels. But all of a sudden they have, 6 really competent pros because I think Mikal Bridges is a competent pro.
Mikal Bridges, if you drive, this happened to Doncic a couple of times. I mean,
defensively is amazing.
This happened to Luka Doncic. If you drive at Mikal Bridges one-on-one, it's kind of like getting sucked into a black hole. Like you're just not coming out of there. Nothing good is happening to you if you just drive into Mikal Bridges. His arms are everywhere, and he gets to straight up like he just blocks his own guy's shot off the dribble, which is incredibly unusual.
Yeah, it's funny that you can start to see the outline of a decent defensive team all of a sudden, right? I mean, Rubio helps you out, Bridges helps you out. I mean, I think Johnson has the potential. It's funny. I don't know that I loved what I saw. I mean, you've been a huge Ayton guy, and all of a sudden, here we are in the bubble, and it's sort of like, okay, there's something there.
I'm intrigued by Ayton. And his improvement on defense has been enormous from year 1 to year 2. From unplayably bad to average, maybe a little better. I don't know, maybe a little worse, depends on the day. By the way, average for a center, Suns fans are going to scoff at that. Average starting center defense in the NBA is generally good. Like that's a good, solid defensive presence to have. But that's the one thing, like you can miss here and miss there, but if you hit on one draft pick and you hit on another, and then the NBA, of course, rewards you with the first pick, and maybe they didn't take the right guy in that draft, but they took a good guy who offensively fits with their best guy. And I said this when Pelton and I were doing our rapid fire, so where the hell were we? I drafted Phoenix really high because I think, and Hollinger wrote this today, I said it last week, I think if there's one team in the West next year where you look at and say, that team is going to be under pressure to win 8 to 10 more games than they won this year, prorated for 82, and make the playoffs, and it's not super unreasonable to expect that kind of jump, it's Phoenix. I think Phoenix is under a lot of pressure next season, and you know what? I think they can live up to it. Obviously, there are 9,000 variables going into next season, what it looks like, how many games there are, where the games are, health, and all that. But like, I think this team is set up to make a little leap next season.
Yeah, I hope so. It's a cool basketball town when it works there. And again, I like this. I like the Bridges Johnson. It's starting to take form, and I felt like that was always sort of an issue where we could evaluate the individual talents that they've drafted, but somehow as a puzzle it didn't fit. And again, look, I have a weakness for defensive wings with decent size who can hit a three, right? Like, look, who doesn't? But you're starting to see the makings of the lineup. Obviously, it'll be interesting to see what they do at point. They'll have to either acquire one, draft one when Rubio moves on for the next incarnation of this team. But it's kind of there. Like you start seeing it, and they have a guy. We're talking about the Spurs. Who's going to give you shot creation? We know the answer to that question in Phoenix.
Well, the point thing is interesting on a number of levels. Like your ideal guy for them is somebody like Malcolm Brogdon, who they chased, and there's a whole complicated backstory to Malcolm Brogdon's free agency. A guy who can play on and off the ball, not necessarily someone you want to be your number one, like we're going to run 50 pick and rolls with him a game. Good shooter, good defender, good size. But you want him ideally on like a contract that's not Malcolm Brogdon's current contract. And so then you start like Patrick Beverley would be perfect. Prime George Hill would be perfect. But those guys are hard to find. Rubio, I think, is imperfect, and they may have paid him a little bit more than they had to once Indiana got Brogdon and Rubio's market fell away. Remember, Rubio to Indiana was like everyone was whispering, right. It's a done deal. Not a done deal, turns out. But, you do get like, it feels a little unfair to say, well, the Suns overpaid Rubio. He's an imperfect fit. And then like, there are these teams who just never get point guards who are even competent. And they cannot win. Like the Knicks cannot do anything until they get a competent point guard. You know what I mean? Like it's just hard to win in the NBA without a competent point guard. And Ricky Rubio, flaws aside, 36% from three this year, 13-9, still decent on defense. Has slipped a little bit, but like, and the guy knows how to play basketball, and his teams generally like play a little better when he's on the floor.
Who you just wish was a better pure point distributor, because we know he can play off the ball. But a guy like Dinwiddie, it's just, I wish he were a little more of sort of a make shots for other guys, because it's just sort of like, I mean, again, I would love size at that position for them. He could play off the ball, but he's just not enough of a point. I'm just going through the catalog of guys who will need jobs because they're being crowded out, but it doesn't work.
Phoenix, unfortunately, is still way on the outside looking in. They play the Clippers in about 3 hours, and then Pacers, Heat, Thunder, Sixers, Mavs. That is a murderer's row.
Yeah.
But I'm rooting for mass chaos. Like, whatever is the most chaotic solution to this race for the 8th seed in the West, that's what I want to happen. So whatever allows us to have Phoenix, like, somehow alive going into the last game against Dallas, that's what I'm rooting for. Tissot is the official watch of the NBA. The NBA is back, and so is Tissot's Buzzer Beater Sweepstakes, bringing you a special opportunity to win exciting prizes. Every time a buzzer beater happens, a participant will win autographed merchandise or watches. Sign up now at us.tissotshop.com/buzzerbeater to enter for your chance to win. Shop the latest timepieces at tissotwatches.com. Follow hashtag ThisIsYourTime and Tissot.us on Facebook and Instagram for more information about Tissot. Tissot, this is your time. Yes, live sports are finally back, just like the rest of us. And now that we're all getting back on the road again, the stops we make seem more special than before, like stopping to watch the game at our friend's place with appropriate protocols, of course, or stopping at our favorite spot to cheer every amazing shot, score, and win, again with appropriate protocols. And between those stops, there's Shell. Stop in to fill up with Shell V-Power Nitro Plus Premium Gasoline. It's their best fuel ever, and it'll help keep your engine running like new. Stop in to save with the Fuel Rewards program. Just download the app or go to fuelrewards.com to join. You'll never pay full price for gas again. And finally, stop in to get snacks and essentials that can save you even more at the pump. That's just a few of the ways Shell helps you make the most of the stop you need to make. See full terms and conditions at fuelrewards.com and engines that continuously use Shell V-Power Nitro Plus Premium Gasoline. Boy, oh boy, wasn't it nice to see the guys back out on the court over the weekend. We are all excited to see what week 2 of the basketball restart has in store. And if that isn't enough excitement for you, DraftKings, the leader in one-day fantasy sports, is offering you, yes, you, a shot at a share of millions of dollars every day this week. If you haven't tried it yet, fantasy basketball is easy to play. You just pick 8 players, stay under the salary cap like a real GM, pile up points for three-pointers, rebounds, assists, more. There's no better way to put your basketball knowledge to the test other than to compete for a share of, again, millions of dollars. But if basketball isn't for you, don't worry. DraftKings is offering plenty of fantasy golf action for this week's major. Get in on the action before the golfers tee off Thursday for a shot at $1 million. That's the top prize. With millions of dollars up for grabs this week, there is no better place to have skin in the game than DraftKings. Download the DraftKings app now and use promo code Lowe, my last name, the name of this podcast, Lowe, to get a shot at millions of dollars in prizes every day this week. That's promo code Lowe to get a shot at millions of dollars in prizes every day this week, only at DraftKings. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com for details. Goodyear believes that movement drives us forward, that every mile traveled brings us one step closer to our goals. But Goodyear also believes in the importance of a rest stop, taking a breather to pause and reflect on the road ahead. Sometimes that's all we need to keep going. A moment to compose ourselves before we start moving forward again. So as you get ready to start moving again, Goodyear's here to help. Visit Goodyear.com to learn more. Goodyear, more driven. I will let you pick. What do you want to talk about next? The defending champion Toronto Raptors, 4-6 in the East, or 3-6 in the West?
All right, so a comment before, I'll tell you what I don't want to talk about, because I actually think that 3-6 in the West is now a non-issue.
That was my last choice, so I'm glad.
Because here's the thing. It doesn't matter. There is no home court. You're avoiding the Lakers and Clippers if you're somebody who believes that that is the objective to be a first round, in a first round situation, right? Because Dallas and Memphis are kind of locked in. So Denver, Houston, Utah, Oklahoma City, there are going to be 2 pairs of those 4 teams who are going to match up against one another. The winners probably are going to have to play the Lakers and Clippers respectively. So I can't recall a time where jockeying for position at the 3-6 in this situation, especially given, again, no home court situation, it means nothing. Unless you don't want to see, if you're the Jazz and you don't want to see the Rockets, okay. Like, that makes sense. But then it's not even, hey, we want to finish third. It's we want to finish outside of range of playing them. So I don't want to talk 3-6 because I truly believe nothing matters less in Orlando than 3-6 in the West.
It's only interesting to me in that there are a couple unusual matchups, right? There's not a lot of evidence that Houston is like a level above any of these teams. They have a little bit better scoring margin. I've said before that I think they have the highest upside and the best chance to the best puncher's chance against the LA teams in the next round. But like, there's no macro evidence that Houston is like a juggernaut any better than Denver, whatever. But they're such a weird team, and Harden is such a weird, unusual player in terms of how he plays that like they scare people. Like right. Denver avoided them last year, and that Jokic matchup. But then you have Jokic, who is unstoppable in the post, And the prospect of him going up against a small team in Houston is really interesting. Utah is sick of seeing red jerseys in the playoffs. They don't want any part of Harden again. And Oklahoma City is sitting there just like, yeah, we're tough as shit. We know how to play. We know how we play. Like, we don't really care. It's an interesting morass. But, okay, you pick what you want to talk about.
I was saying, like, the last thing word on Houston is what scares people is they randomize the game. Right, they absolutely create a range of probabilities that scares the crap out of you.
They took 61 threes the other night.
Right, and so that's virtue and vice. But man, if it ends up being virtue, you're screwed. Like they can really wreak havoc. Teams that randomize basketball are frightening. Let's talk Philly, which I guess is 3 through 6 in the East. But I want to defer to you. I know you have great interest in Philadelphia. I have great interest in Philadelphia.
My favorite. You really like. It's like a neighbor delivering a piece of like a pie to my house. Let's say someone's saying, "Let's talk about Philly" on my own podcast. I just don't. I don't know what the hell's going on with Philly. Yeah. They come in, they shit the bed against the Pacers. T.J. Warren scores 1 million points. They barely hold on as Ben Simmons is in foul trouble. They actually had to come back and beat the Spurs last night. They're looking at a matchup that I don't think is particularly good for them or anybody in the first round if they don't get out of sixth. Their schedule, though, gives them a shot. Now, they've got to make up a couple of games on Indiana because the Indiana has the tiebreak. And they've all played the same. Miami, Indiana, and Philly have all played the same amount of games, which is very handy because now we can do real tiebreakers with them. Philly plays Wizards, W. Orlando, if you can't get that W, then just do something else with life. I mean, Orlando's okay, but if you're Philly and you're playing with urgency, win the game. Portland, okay. Phoenix, W. Toronto, yeah. Houston in the finale, depends on a lot of things. Philly, I just don't want to overreact to anything that happens in the first 2 games. Their defense has been terrible. I do think this will be a good they'll stabilize that. I mean, again, this is a 4-month layoff during a pandemic. Like some wild stuff is going to happen, but I just don't know what to make of them, and I'm trying my best not to ride the Philly roller coaster too much game by game.
They are bizarre. And here it is. Their 1 through 3 guys shoot a total of 2 3-pointers. And they scored 121 points in 103 possessions. And then somebody gets a memo and they went for 15 last night. It's funny. Like, we look at the personnel, we look at the flaws, the rigor mortis that can occur, and yet they're tearing it up and the defense is crap, which is counter to everything we know. I do feel like Embiid, I love what I see offensively. He's working more quickly. And part of that is him, and part of that is that they're finding him more quickly. And by the way, if I can I do my Horford thing just because I know he's like number 7 on decisive factors about whether this team achieves or doesn't achieve.
I disagree.
Okay, well then good. Then I'm even happier.
They have to stop losing the minutes when Embiid rests.
Right. So I saw this high-low read with Horford and Embiid versus the Pacers, and my nerd self smiled. Like, my great hope is they can make real use of him on both sides of the ball. He was a ball handler on the pick and roll last night and found this. It was great set, cutting down, streaking down the lane, slam dunk. This other high low to Harris. He missed the bunny, but the guy could have had 10 assists last night. And Simmons gets his 4th foul right at the start of the second half. And then Philly goes out and plays some of their best basketball with Harris at the 3, Horford at the 4, and Embiid at the 5, which runs counter to everything I believe, which is you don't want to upsize guys, you want to downsize them. It's just amazing.
First of all, even by low post standards, that ode to Al Horford was like a little much. Even by my own personal standards, that was I love Al Horford. And
I warned you.
I know. I say that tongue in cheek. The stat I watched with Embiid is 5 assists, 4 turnovers. And that's last night. 5 assists, 4 turnovers. And he had some ones where the Spurs hard doubled him, and their bet is you're going to make the wrong pass because you struggled with this. He struggled with it for a lot of his career. That's the make or break for me on Embiid. Horford, I think the layoff appears to have done Horford pretty well. We can nitpick the fit. Can nitpick that he had a bad 3-point shooting season after a few good ones, but he's moving laterally pretty well and staying balanced on defense pretty well against smaller guys. And if he can get through this healthy and not creaky, that's big for Philly. Obviously, the Shake Milton experiment is ongoing. It took half a quarter for Embiid or a full quarter for Embiid and him to get in a shouting match during a game, so that's great. Again, the Sixers, like, I'm watching that game and I'm like, I'm so excited for the Shake Milton lineup. By the way, I think it's played 13 minutes in 2 games and is like -2 or something because of Simmons' foul trouble. And like, I'm so excited for it. I think it's the right move. And they're yelling at each other in 12 minutes. Like, you just can't make anything up about the Sixers.
Yeah,
or you could make anything up, I guess.
They've become the crazy team. They have truly become the crazy team. And it's great.
It's great until
Oh no, I mean it's great from the outside. Okay, like I think it's great theater. Not it's great for them. It's lousy for them. It's great for anybody who enjoys sort of theater when the stakes are the highest.
And the other thing is like, I do still watch them, and I just think I can't get the Butler thing out of my head because I do still feel in my gut when I watch them they're a reliable half-court ball handler short still. And I say that as someone who obviously picked them to make the finals at the beginning of the year, knowing that they started the season a reliable ball handler in the half-court short. I still kind of don't trust Simmons in that scenario in the last 5 minutes of a close, slow game. And, that Indiana loss, it was headline number 10 from that crazy game. I think Josh Richardson took 4 shots and had 1 assist. And that's one of those bellwether things where it's like Richardson and Harris just have to give them enough juice as ball handlers. And Harris has been okay. He's had a good season. But he is what he is. I think we know what Tobias Harris is now. He's not going to get you 7 assists in a game very often. You know what I mean? He's not going to create super well for others. They just got to get a little more from those guys. And I just, when I watch them, I don't feel good in my gut about it.
Yeah, I mean, as you said, we could talk about Simmons as a power forward all day. You know what? Not if they don't have distributors. Like, damn no, he's not a power forward. So that's a semantical, even just hypothetical conversation that has no bearing in reality because, again, even their guys off the bench are sort of, flare screen shooters. Like, there just isn't a hell of a lot there. And again, it doesn't, it always goes back to Simmons. It always goes back to Simmons. His brilliance, his limitations, what he can do for an offense, what he can do for a defense. I mean, I think what we're relying on in a Philly-Boston or Philly-anyone matchup is this notion that they're going to lock teams up with physicality and size. They're just going to be able to do that. It's going to be arms and legs and this amazing ability to both close out and clog paint. They're going to be everywhere, and that is the formula. And then they'll get just enough from these guys you're talking about. And they'll squirt by. I mean, other worse and better teams have done that. It's a formula that can work. And again, I'm with you. I'm not panicking about the defense.
No, their defense will be fine. But I think they were 5th or 6th before the suspension of the season in defense. That's not good enough. They have to be to win to get to the finals. They have to play at like a top 2 level. I still think they can do that. But we have to see them do it. And some of their lineups have done that, in fairness. But we just have to see it consistently. The team in this group that has done the most interesting thing so far is that Miami is the only team in the bubble, to my recollection, that is essentially healthy and has no real limitations. And even so, changed its starting lineup and is now starting a new lineup for the restart. And they have started. Myers Leonard is out, and Jay Crowder is in, and so they are starting Nunn, Robinson, Butler, Crowder, Bam at center. They're going to ride with Bam at center. They've played Bam and Olynyk a lot off the bench, and that's been very good for them in the bubble. But that, to me, that's why this restart is so interesting, because it's a restart, but it's like halfway between a restart of an old season and a brand new season. And Miami clearly, maybe they won't stick with it. Their starting lineup with Myers Leonard was actually quite good, but they decided the way we want to play, our best ceiling, and I agree with them. Our best team is heavy Bam at center. And that takes like Miami was 42 and 24. They were good. Their starting lineup was awesome with Myers, like plus 13 per 100 with Myers Leonard. That takes a certain amount of guts to just say, you know what, we're pivoting. What do you think of the pivot? I
mean, you know what? I was surprised, and I don't hate it. I'm not sure I love it yet. I want to see more, and that's the curse of the empiricist. Like, I just want to see more. But what I like is Bam look, Bam's versatility gives you so much. The truth is he can defend the 5 for the most part. I mean, I would say that he's perfectly suited. There's sort of a old school Horford at the 5 defense, because here's the great thing. He's probably as good a defender against ball handlers in a switch situation. And by the way, they have switched a ton. No, actually, have they? I feel like I saw them with Adebayo. You can just do
You can do anything with Bam.
You can do whatever the hell you want. And Crowder's physical, and I mean, it's interesting. You still have that sort of the milk carton, not so much milk carton, actually the mystery guest backcourt with Nunn and Robinson, which also just demonstrates they're as confident a team about seemingly rash decisions as anybody in the league. Like Spo's ability, and it speaks to Butler, it speaks to Adebayo, it speaks to the character of the team. Like Spo's ability to just say, okay, now this. Like he's just the confidence in the creativity. It's never, we'll see how this goes. This is going to work, and it often does. I mean, it's interesting to see. Butler. We go back to shot creation. Obviously, Adebayo can create shots for others. Butler is essentially the best creator on that team, and probably your pick and roll ball handler when the stuff gets sticky.
For sure.
So again, I'm just fascinated to see it. I'm with you. It's just I like it, and my sense is to always go smaller if you have the capacity to do it, and they certainly have the capacity and versatility to do it. I still want to see more, because I am a guy who looks at 13 plus 13 for 100 and say, hey, like, you want to ride this maybe a little longer because it's working.
It's there, and it's going to be a night-to-night juggling act, and we've already seen that in the first couple of games from them in terms of who plays, who gets crunch time minutes, because they just don't have it. You put one guy in, the defense goes down, but the shooting goes up. You put another guy in, the defense goes up, but the shooting goes down. So it's hard to find the right mix for them. Derek Jones Jr. seems to be the odd man out in the power forward rotation, so that when Crowder's out, they're playing Butler at the 4. Basically, Iguodala will guard a 4 here and there. So they've gone even smaller in that regard. But like you put Dragic in for closing time, and Dragic, Robinson, Butler, Bam, whoever, Crowder, like your defense takes a little bit of a hit. You put in you put in Iguodala, and your shooting takes a little bit of a hit. So it's just going to be, and again, because Bam is not a 3-point shooter, Bam is not really a outside the elbows shooter at this point, and Butler just had a disastrously bad jump shooting season. So your two best players are non-shooters. That makes for a tricky ecosystem. But like you said, they got a lot of interesting parts. We didn't mention Nunn, who just kind of does a little bit of everything. Mm-hmm. And Olynyk has been absolutely on fire. Finished the pre-suspension part of the season on fire, has continued that. And you just have to trust the coaching staff to kind of push the right buttons every game.
They are a team of very good generalists. And it's going to be interesting in a moment when, and look, I mean, Butler can create time. But by the way, I'm with you. Like, I mean, Butler, man, I love Jimmy Butler. But I think there are teams with better top creators in that situation than Miami, because he's pretty good in that situation.
See, I think you're underrating Jimmy Butler. I think Jimmy Butler is awesome, and
I love Jimmy Butler. I'm saying I just, like, as you said, he's not a great shooter for a wing who is your best player,
and yet I weirdly trust him to. If you go under at 16 feet in crunch time, I trust him to make enough of those shots. But maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I'm just, But that will be an issue for them. But I think they just kind of decided, like, this is our best bet long term. Let's try it now. Let's see how it works. And they were playing crunch time a lot with Bam at center anyway, so it's not a huge reinvention. But it is interesting. And right now they're the favorite to get the 4th seed, which. And if they draw Indiana in round 1, I think given Sabonis' injury, we don't know really. Oladipo rested last night. I think they'd be the favorite to get out of that matchup. And I don't think the Bucks. Look, the Bucks aren't scared of anybody. They're the Bucks. I mean, I think they view all these like, are the Bucks vulnerable? I think they just sort of like, oh, we'll see. We'll see if we're vulnerable. We'll see. We'll remember what everyone said. We'll see. But that's a matchup where the Heat certainly aren't scared of it, and I think would kind of welcome the chance at it.
Yeah, sure. And I also think that, given Milwaukee's Achilles heel is sort of, giving up long-range shots against a team that I mean, this is a team that I think, for the most part, the Bucks can absorb that gamble. I really do. So, I mean, look, I think Miami's a tough matchup because they do present great versatility. Versatility has become a cliche when we start chalking up attributes for teams, but there's a reason it's a cliche. So, I mean, look, hey, have me on when it is a Miami-Milwaukee, and we can hypothesize.
Well, my thing with Miami has been, I think they punched a little bit above their weight this season. They're about 14th or 15th in defense. People think of them as an elite defensive team, and they're not.
It's so funny, I do, and yet whenever I look at the stats, you're right. Like it's always, that's a surprise.
They gave up a ton of threes and got maybe a little bit lucky. And on the other end, they were the best 3-point shooting team in the league. And I just like we talk about the Rockets. Like on the right night, the Rockets could put up 130 against you and have a player who you can't do anything with. Like on the right night, you just can't do anything with James Harden. He's just going to get 40 and you're dead. Miami just doesn't night to night. They're kind of like the East version of Oklahoma City in that I think they have a level. They're going to hit their level, and they're not going to oscillate too far above or below that level. And so I don't think, I don't know, but they're really good. Miami's really good. Yeah. Let's talk about the Raptors. Let's finish with the Raptors. They beat the Heat yesterday in a close game. People have suddenly sort of come to realization that, maybe the Raptors are actually really good. And I get why there's skepticism. They lost a 2-time Finals MVP. They lost a guy that, with 2 minutes left in a close game, you just give him the ball and you feel pretty good about it. They lost the guy who, in Milwaukee, Game 5, broke Milwaukee's drop-back defense. And so I get why. And by the way, guarded Giannis. So I get why people are skeptical of when the Raptors, whose half-court offense has actually been sneakily just so-so this year, when they run into a team that can stop their transition game and match, and they have the prettiest kick-ahead transition game in the league. If they run into such a team, maybe they never will. How are they scoring in the half court? Is Pascal Siakam really ready for that? I get all of that. But this team is really good. They have the DNA of a champion, which sounds cliche, but you can tell. Doris Burke put it great the other night. She said they play with their chest puffed out. That's perfect. They know who they are. They know how good they are. They know each other. They can play with one eye open, all 5 of them on the floor. They know where everyone's going, where the other team is going. They know their schemes. And just don't sleep on the Raptors. Don't sleep on them.
I really like the defensive piece, too. You know what I ended up doing, Zach, contra what I said here when we were doing our all-defense picks? My second team all-defense, forward, OG. I put him on there. I just started watching more and, talking to some folks. And, they had him on Bam yesterday. He is effortless in his defensive movements. He knows.
Let's talk about that.
Because I think it's going to be really important. Like, this is the guy who's going to guard Giannis if it comes to that.
He will guard Giannis, but the fact that they put him on, and he guarded, in their first game, he guarded LeBron some. I don't know. So they put OG Anunoby on Bam. They put Marc Gasol on Jay Crowder. And they put Pascal Siakam on Jimmy Butler. They do like this all the time. And I think half the reason is because their defensive players are so versatile they can do it. Or maybe a third of the reason. Like they like the matchup. They like a matchup and they're just like, let's just do that matchup and figure out the rest later. A third of the reason is I think they get into games and they know that teams are going to be like, wait, they're doing what now? So how do we adjust? And like 6 minutes go by before you figure something out. And C, the last third, I honestly think, I've never talked to Nick Nurse about this. I would love to. I think they do it so that the matchups are all scrambled. When they get a stop and the other team has a decision to make in transition, do we try to get to the matchups we want? Do we live with these matchups they've foisted upon us? And teams kind of get lost in this haze of confusion. I think they're doing it in part to help their offense.
They're so interesting because here's this team, as you said, championship DNA. They know who they are, and they've decided the best way to win is guerrilla warfare. Like we are going to absolutely just ambush completely out of the bounds of what we know even conventional new age basketball, right? Like we are just going to do crazy, and because crazy for 48 minutes, if well executed, if you know you're crazy and the other team doesn't, like that is a decisive advantage in life. And again, the worst thing that happens is, someone's going to post up Kyle. Have you seen the numbers when people try to post up Kyle? It's positively Chris Paul-esque.
I would like to see Shaq post up Kyle. I think Shaq would win, but Kyle would come up with some dirty, like Ric Flair style tricks to try and even up the matchup.
Yeah, I mean, I love it defensively. They waste no movement, and when you get them in the half court, like there's not one movement wasting. I was watching OG yesterday, and it's like they have such great timing defensively. They know how to dance. There is no wasted time. There is no wasted action. They know exactly when the corral is over a get back, and they just don't make mistakes. And that is an incredibly good resource to have in a big playoff series.
Nobody scrambles better, and nobody scrambles smarter. So the Raptors, as the diehards know, allowed more corner threes as a share of opponent shots than any team in the history of the NBA. That should be a death knell. I think they allow the second most threes overall in the league. But it's not. They're the number 2 defense in the league, and they hold opponents to a pretty low percentage on threes. Some of that is luck. As my lights flicker, let's finish this podcast. Some of that is luck.
Oh, I want to talk coaches fashion. Oh my God, you have a great piece.
Well, we'll see. We'll see if the gods allow. Some of it is luck, but some of it is skill. Some of it is knowing opposing personnel, and some of it is when Pascal Siakam is flying at you and OG Anunoby is flying at you. They are longer and faster and jump higher than a lot of the equivalent defenders on other teams. I don't think it's all luck. Some of it is luck. I don't even think half of it is luck. I think they know what they're doing, and they execute it really well, and they're going to be a beast to score on in the playoffs. They have been the best defensive team outside Milwaukee this whole season, and I think they have another gear, frankly. I think they have another gear to hit defensively.
I can't wait to watch it.
Okay, talk about coach's fashion. Today I wrote a story. Sometimes it's okay to be silly. And today I decided to be silly. And I wrote on the suits versus polos controversy that is, frankly, it's making enemies of friends, friends of enemies. It's the issue that, some coaches don't even want to touch it. It's a third rail issue for some NBA coaches. Suits versus polos. I think Team Polo is coming out of Orlando with momentum. I think they're coming. I think the coaches vote on this every couple of years. They poll their members internally, say what dress code do we want. Now the NBA has to approve whatever dress code. They can't coach in a t-shirt and shorts. But I think the polo look is going to have momentum. You said you had a take on this. What is your take?
All right. So first of all, I just want to say my general position on most social issues is let people do what they want. So I'm also a congenital schwitzer. So I appreciate that in Orlando, when it's 94 degrees and 100% humidity, that you want a degree of comfort. Also, like you're away from home. I mean, there's a summer league quality to the milieu, and I'm with that. That said,
sure. First of all, hold on. Before you get into that said, I just want to congratulate you on using Schmitz and milieu. Schwitz and milieu within a span of 15 seconds. Continue.
Yes, a Yiddishism and a French-derived word. Okay, so that said, I think going forward, and I'm okay with the exception. I think going forward, I still like the suit. This is an arena sport. This is a place you go at 7:30 in a big city, and damn if you're wearing flip-flops. That's BS. Okay, there's a certain spectacle, like celebrities on the sidelines. Like I do agree with Ryan Saunders. Like when I'm wearing a suit. There's greater magnitude to the moment. Now that said, most of these coaches can't dress worth a damn. Okay?
Oh!
Now, Kenny, before he got fired, Atkinson and Spo to me are the only A dressers.
Kenny's like walking into the meeting at Sterling Cooper. Kenny Atkinson looks like he's ready. He's ready for the meeting with Don Draper.
So I think Ryan Saunders has his nights. I could do without the plaid suits unless you're going for that Doug Moe look. But I think he's solid. Nick Nurse has his good nights.
Pro suit. Nick Nurse is pro suit. Nick Nurse knows he looks good. He's pro suit.
I think he's really good. He has the right amount of restraint and pop to his wardrobe. I can even go with that maroon blazer he wears sometimes. I like it, that little wine color blazer. Dwayne Casey looks sharp. Especially since he gave up the pleated pants, and he was frankly too late on that. Like he was riding pleated pants into like the mid 2000 teens.
I didn't know what pleated pants were until I was like 24, and the girl I was dating was like, "We need to have a talk about your pleated pants."
Well, this is why you have.
What's that about? And then I knew.
What this is the benefit of having a gay man on your show. We can talk fashion for 10 minutes, all right? Like, I think Quinn does okay. I think that it's also might just be that he's got the body for a suit, and intense people look better in suits. Lloyd Pierce, he's okay. I think too many light ties against white shirts. A little monochrome check tie combo. I think he bats about 500 on game night. But there's a lot of just schlumpiness. Like Brad Stevens should do better. Like he's just
he doesn't
a guy,
want to do better. He wants to wear polos.
I mean, and it's just like, and I don't mean that. I mean that as a compliment. Like, he can do better. He can pull off a suit, I bet, if he wanted to, better. And the open collar, that's fine on certain nights, a little Sunday afternoon action. But I think one of the things is I think there's a lot of polo support because most of these guys can't dress with a damn. They get their 8 Joseph Abood suits at the coaches' meeting in May. They don't even get them tailored, so like they're out there with these boxy suits. Monty's a guy who should do better. Like, there's no excuse. Like, Monty Williams is a handsome guy with gravitas, and yet these boxy, crappy suits and tie combinations. And look, I know the colors are orange and purple. You don't got to do that most nights. Like, we know who's your team you're coaching. So all I'm saying is I get the polo thing because most of these guys are schlumpy.
Wow. That was exciting. I have not paid any attention to what kind of ties Lloyd Pierce wears. I don't wear ties ever. I am anti-tie. So I support the coaches who do the Brad Stevens. Brett Brown does the no tie look a lot. You apparently don't like that look.
Well, no. Here's the thing. I'm a short man, which means I need verticality. So I need lines going from top to bottom of my outfit so that I can just gain at least visually like a half inch. Every little bit counts. So, that's the issue. Look, I just think I like that NBA coaches are sharp. Or at least profess to be sharp. I mean, when they try, and so I just think it's a cool look. And I don't want it for the bubble. I think for the bubble,
nobody wants it for the bubble.
Right.
Nobody wants.
But going forward, it just, I don't know. It's just part of the NBA sells something. When you go to Staples Center the night of a Laker game, it feels like an event. And I want the coaches in top suits, and I get why they don't. I'm just saying, if you were asking me for branding purposes, this is a product, and the coaches are part of that product, and they are very visible on the sidelines. This is a nighttime arena, big city sport. This is not football or baseball, okay? And can you imagine, Zach, if it was like baseball and these guys wore jerseys?
Well, that's the joke a lot of coaches made.
Right.
It's like, well, we don't want to be like baseball where we're dressed like the players. Like, no one wants to see you in a tank top, and nobody wants to see you in a basketball jersey. I am all for the casual look. And I've been saying this for years. I think it's still, these guys are basketball coaches in big, sweaty, loud gyms, and they have to dress like they're about to litigate before the Supreme Court. But I get what you're saying. I do think Team Suit is going to win because the league cares, and I don't think enough of the coaches care enough to actually make a fight out of it. And so I think inertia will win. People will continue to wear suits, and that will be that. I will say, though, if you're going to wear a polo, I hate to quibble with Greg Popovich. If you're going to wear a polo, you got to tuck that thing in. You can't have this polo that's going down halfway to your knees. That's just, I mean, right? We
And I'll also add, the less we see of that salmon color Clippers polo, the better.
That's pretty bad.
Jeez.
Popovich is starting to remind me of George Carlin somehow. I was watching the Spurs last night, and I was like, Pop is kind of he's cantankerous. The hair is getting a little white and slicked back now. He's like got a little George Carlin thing going on.
We'll hear the 7 dirty words at his press conference. That would be just epic.
I had no idea you felt this strong. I mean, I guess I had some idea, but I didn't know you were tracking some of the sartorial
Look, I'm just one
habits.
of these people. I don't need to see yoga pants on the airline. Like I just on the airplane. Like I just think that. Look, I'm mostly a flannel and jeans and Jordans guy. I'm not exactly, I mean, you see me at games sometimes. I used to wear a suit for every playoff game. Now I'm, most games. But I will say, I just think
interesting. I think if you
civil society is breaking down, if people can wear like yoga pants and pajamas on a freaking cross country flight. It's got to stop somewhere. We and I just think the NBA, the NBA is all about being on the right side of societal issues. This is a societal issue.
I didn't know you felt this, but I do think it's an interesting dilemma for you now. You've come out as, well, this is a show. Now, you're not a coach, But do you not have to hold yourself to the same standards? Do you have to wear a suit to games all the time because you have demanded such of the other theater members of the NBA?
Our country has failed, so we'll never go to another game again. God, who knows by the time we get to another game. But yeah, for playoff games, I do. And I try to look sharp with a kind of a blazer and jeans look when I go to most games. If I'm writing off the game, it's funny. Like when I'm writing off the game, I feel compelled to be a little sharper.
I miss going to games so much. Maybe someday. I think we hit everything we wanted to talk about. Kevin Arnovitz, it's great to talk basketball with you again. It is incredibly surreal to be doing this in August as a tropical storm hits the Northeast, and to get off at 1 p.m. right now, and I'm going to start watching a game soon because, again, I've been so jealous of Pacific time for all these years. Now I get to experience it. It's good to see you. It's good to talk to you. It's good to have some hoops back. Thank you for coming on, my friend.
Thanks for having me.